Pick up your gear and open your chests. Throw on your armor and head out on a quest. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. On the Sword Coast, your allies will help with blades and bows and magic as well. Hey, hey, heroes on their way. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, get you all out there. Idle champions, you will say it again. Idle champions. From Waterdeep to Icewind, head out to Chull or Shadowfell, hey, hey. Together we stay. Walk to the monsters, walk to the boss, walk to the right, it's never a loss, hey, hey. Bad guys to slay. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, get you all out there. Idle champions, you will say it again. Idle champions.
Hey, when the music ends, that's my cue. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gaarawarr's Guide, the tutorial show. We do that every Saturday here on the C&E Games channel, where, you know, I show up and I talk about a specific topic for like an hour, and people ask questions, and then in the second hour, I try to answer all the questions. That's how this show works. Joining me today is Jordan in the Mod Pod, so Jordan's going to be gathering your questions for me to ask again in the second half of the show. So be patient, everyone. We will get there. We will get there. But today we're going to be talking about formation strategy. So, you know, basically, what is a formation? How do you build one? And all the things that go into making those decisions. We did one of these a couple years ago. Oh, I hate it when the tag is up in the back of my shirt. Sorry. All right. We did one of these a couple years ago. I'm going to be straight up honest. Nothing's changed about formation building since then. But it's a good time now, leaning into the 100th champion arriving in the game, to come back and talk about it again, just to refresh people's memories. But also, we have lots of new people that have come in the last 2 years. You know, hey, give you a chance to ask some questions. Specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to do like a kind of a top level overview of formation building. I'm not going to sit there and build like formations for every campaign and every layout. That's wow, folks. There's over 100 unique formation layouts in the game, so that's not going to happen. But what we'll talk about is, you know, kind of the strategies that go into that you're looking at when you see a unique formation layout, and how to attack that so that you can do this on your own. Kind of the teach a person to fish instead of just hand them a fish type of situation. All right. I guess let's dive into it. So, as I said before, there's over 100 unique formation layouts in the game. How does that work? Well, every kind of a campaign, every actual campaign, like all these buttons over here, and every quotes campaign that happens in the game has a unique formation layout. What does that mean? That means, well, all of these that you see here, the 6, including Trials of Mount Tiamat. So 7 have unique campaign formation layouts. But also, every time you go into an event, which, you can actually is represented by all of these champions over here in these time gates, every one of these champions, every one of the champions, not every event, every champion has a unique formation layout that you will have to build a formation for when you're doing their stuff, their unlock adventure, their variants, their free plays, everything. So we are, as I speak, at 99 champions in the game, 6 primary campaigns, and Trials of Mount Tiamat. So yeah, that's a lot of formation layouts. So learning this one thing, learning how to build a formation based off the layout you see in the champions you have, is the kind of fundamental foundational piece of knowledge of this game. It's why it's the first guide in my list of guides on the subreddit. It is the very first guide, because I want everybody to read that one first. Speaking of, you can find that guide. I think Jordan can link it in the chat. You can find that guide over on the subreddit. And you can review it. We're going to talk about basically that same thing here today. So Sword Coast, the Grand Tour of the Sword Coast is the first campaign you'll run, and is the first formation layout that people are become familiar with. So this is the diamond. This is the standard diamond that we see. It is the not only kind of one of the most basic formation layouts in the game, but it is also the one with the least number of champions. So you only get to use 9 champions in the Grand Tour of the Realms. Grand Tour of the Sword Coast, excuse me. Got confused. It is also just kind of, there's lots of adjacencies. We'll talk about what that means. And it's just it's a single tank layout. We'll talk about all of the things that come with this. But as you go along, like when you jump into the second one, you'll see that it's a slightly varied layout. But there's actually 10 champions. 10 champions is kind of what you're going to see with all of the other layouts that are currently in the game. So one of the things to keep in mind here, we're going to hop into Curse Farmer. One of the things to keep in mind is the term formation. Let's keep things clear here. The term formation gets thrown about in a couple different ways. One, it's talking about this diamond layout, the formation layout. That would probably be the better term, but formation gets used for that. And also, the arrangement of the champions in that formation layout gets referred to as a formation as well. Slightly confusing, but we're 4.5 years into the game. We can't change the terminology now. So just know that there is a difference. One is the layout, and one is the grouping of the champions in that layout. So this is not, I did not build this formation. This was just me clicking buttons. However, this is based off a sort of a save formation. This is real bad, folks. So we're going to clear all this out, and we're going to talk about what you're doing here. We're going to talk about what each of these little situations is. So each of these little circles that you see in this layout, that's kind of getting larger when I hover over it, is what gets referred to as a formation slot. So these are where you can slot in your champions. Anywhere that you see that is not blocked by something else or restricted in some way, which can happen, is a place you can freely put a champion to use. Kind of straightforward. Each of these groupings, like this, even though it's just a slot, is a column. This is a column. This is a column. This is a column. And this is a column. Learning how to separate columns is going to make sense because there are abilities in this game that reference columns. There's bonuses and buffs and all kinds of things that are going to say in the column in front, in the column behind, in the column they're in the 2 columns behind, in all the columns behind, and all the columns in front. So what they're referring to is all of these sets in relation to where you're putting your champion. I did talk about one other thing when I was looking at the overlay, and that's adjacency. So what is an adjacency, and why do we need to know what that is? When you are looking at the placement of your champion and the slots that are around them, the things that are directly next to them are considered adjacent. This probably seems like vocabulary 101, but it is important to know that that's what they're talking about. So in this location, Orkira would have 3 adjacencies. In this location, Orkira would have 6 adjacencies. The number of adjacencies can matter, again, for certain bonuses and things. This is why we have to learn these terms, and why you want to pay attention and make sure you understand what those terms mean, because this is how you're going to determine if buffs or bonuses are going to affect, or healing is going to affect certain champions in the game. It is important to keep in mind that when we go to some other layouts, there are going to be gaps or holes in the formation. And adjacency is referring directly to things that are right next to. And when you will see sometimes it say not just things, this buffs adjacent champions. It will say this buffs within 2 adjacent spaces. Well, what does that mean? That means you actually have to, those spots need to actually touch. So if we were doing 2 adjacent here, and this isn't the situation with Orkira, but it would not only buff right here where we're placing Whittle, but it would also buff here. This is 2 adjacent. This is 2 adjacent, right? This is 2 adjacent. I think you see where I'm going with this. This is why I like starting in Sword Coast. So all of these slots count as 2 adjacent as well. So in a real world analogy, if we were to put starter champion Calliope in, Calliope has an ability that will shield within 2 adjacent spaces, and if you put Calliope here, you'll only be able to buff 2 adjacent up to that middle column. But if you put Calliope here, this is a shield. She will shield everyone in the party, and it's designated by these green lines that are shifting here. So it is important, like it is much better for Calliope to be potentially placed here if you're trying to shield everybody in your party than to be here, and definitely better than here, right? And you could see how things get restrictive. You could put her here, you could put her here, right? These are all going to give you within 2 adjacencies. These are the types of things you have to keep in mind. There are buffs, like I said, if we want to go back to the column, there are buffs that buff in the same column, like Bruner here. He will buff in the same column, and you will see some of these indicators will be in the game, folks, but not all. So it is good to understand, like you don't want to put Bruner necessarily here because he's not buffing anybody. You could put him here, he'll buff 1, etc. Some of these abilities are going to be shown in the game. It's usually what gets visually shown is their primary ability, or anything that is labeled specifically that it's going to go in a certain range. Like right here, increases the damage of champions in the same column. This is how they text this to you. There are going to be champions that have multiple abilities that are based off your formation layout and the champion's place in them. They won't always be visually demonstrated, because if there's multiple, it's a little more difficult to show you those multiples. Like Orkira's not, if you'll notice, Orkira's not showing anything. Orkira has an ability, well, I guess we'll level her up. Make sure she continues to not show anything. Oh, there we go. Now she's showing something. But if you'll note, her arrows are pointing to very specific places. See how it's changing? It's actually pointing to non-adjacent slots. So here, you see I've got all those 4 adjacent don't get an arrow pointing to them. Now we get a lot more pointing to them. Now we get only 2 pointing to them. This is because Orkira only heals non-adjacent. Non-adjacent. So you will try to, they will try to give you some indicators when they can. They're not always going to be able to if there's multiple buffs. Just keep that in mind. keep that in mind. The other question that we get asked, we will make references, like if we go over here into, that's the wrong button, Gaarawarr. I know it's early on Saturday morning for you, but you got to kind of do the thing. Game, would you like to respond to me clicking on you? Nope. It doesn't want to respond. I just broke it, folks. I just broke it. Great. How? Sean? Taylor? All right. We will bring that back in a moment. So what I was going to was the blessings. Certain blessings are going to... Oh, see, I can't do this. I can't do two things at once here. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Let's do this. This probably. This should cover the screen, right? It didn't. That should cover the screen, right? All right. Some blessings and other things are going to talk to you about this does something at the front of the formation, or only if you're placed at the front. This is if you're only placed at the rear. This does stuff at the top of the formation. This does stuff at the bottom. I will visually show this. I will visually show this to you in a moment when we get our client back. But top, bottom, and front and rear are fairly straightforward. The front is always going to be the side that's to the closest to the oncoming enemies. This is usually referred to as your tank line, because that tends to be where you want to put your tanks. That's not always where your tanks end up, but that does tend to be where they go. So here you'll see this at the front. This is the front. This is considered the front of your column because it's closest to where the enemies are showing up on the screen. That means this is the back. However many formation slots are in this specific column will all be considered the back. The same with the front. We will see multi-slots here in a moment when we switch them from formations. Top is referred to anything that doesn't have a formation directly or even indirectly above it is going to be considered a top, like this. So all of these 5 slots are considered top. So you can have things that are considered 2 things at once. You can be the front and the top at the same time. And then bottom, of course, is considered down here. Anything that's at the bottom of a column that's not blocked by other things. So the true bottoms of columns, the true tops of columns, the true front, the true back. Fairly straightforward, but sometimes, for whatever reason, people get confused, so we want to make sure we call that out. Now, this is also how you track, to a certain degree, how you track edges. So there will be certain abilities that are like, so-and-so does this if they're placed on the edge of a formation. Well, that means anywhere that's a front, top, back, or bottom of a formation is going to be considered an edge. So anywhere where there's a clean differentiation, like this is not an edge because there's things all the way around it. But anywhere that there's not anything adjacent to one of these kind of cardinal directions, top, back, bottom, or front. Okay, those are going to be edges. Once upon a time, we thought they were counting inside edges. Does not seem to be the case. If that, who knows, that may change with certain formation layouts, but that is not something that tends to work. I think I do need to update my guide for that. And then occasionally there are what we like to call holes in a formation. Let's go look at one of those. We should actually look at something that's a little more complex. Again, Sword Coast is pretty straightforward. I will say Tomb of Annihilation, pretty straightforward. Again, you've got Tomb of Annihilation got back. They've got a huge back column with 4, but again, a single tank, top, bottom, and then only one inside. Lots of adjacencies, but nothing super complex about this. Once we start getting into, say, Waterdeep, you'll notice now there's quite a different type of layout. And we're going to have not only edges, but holes and gaps in the formation. Oh, why would I pick the armored one? I swear I just clicked on a random place, and of course I would get something with armored enemies. Of course, because the game hates me. All right, there we go. So as you can see, there's a much different situation here. Let's just throw a bunch of champions randomly in so that you can see, hey, now we've got a gap, right? So now that we have this this gap, this changes a lot of functions whenever you have a gap or a hole of some kind. This changes how some things get calculated. So when we're looking at, say, Calliope, if we level Calliope up, we will see her indicator wants to go adjacent, and you'll notice it's trying, like within a couple, like this is trying to indicate column in front as well as things within 2. But when we move things back, you'll notice it does not. If we put her right here in the middle, this is your indicator that adjacencies do mean direct adjacencies. So even though it's saying she can shield within 2 adjacent slots of herself, it will not jump that gap. It will not jump up to Minsk here. Okay, it is going to go through Sentry to Orkira, and it's going to go through Naeli to Whittle, but it will not jump the gap. It does not count any of these, what would normally be a slot here, but are non-existent. It's just not going to do that. Most abilities will not do that. Most abilities will say, like right here, grants temporary HP to damage champions within 2 slots of a Calliope. It is talking about within 2 adjacent slots. There are exceptions to this. And again, it has to be kind of called out sometimes. Sometimes it's not. But Dadius, for instance, it says, increases damage of champions within 2 slots distance of Dadius. So it says within 2 slots distance, not just within 2 slots. And it says, as the crow flies. This means he will jump that gap. His ability will jump that gap. So there are champions that will call out that their abilities will go through gaps, and that allows them to be a little more functional in situations like this one, right? Like, so if we move Dadius up here, he's buffing everybody because he jumps the gap, right? So this is what a hole or a gap in your formation looks like. And that is going to affect how you build your formation in terms of how you're looking at adjacencies and what's going to count, because this gap is not going to let you, generally speaking, jump buffs across it. Now things that say, hey, the damage of all champions are buffed, well, that just means your entire formation. You're good there. But whenever they talk about, within, 2, 1, 2, 3 adjacencies, that's not going to go through unless it specifically gets called out that it's going to go through. Okay, that's your exception to the rule. Now, this formation, like Waterdeep, isn't the only place that has gaps like this. You can see if we come down here to Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate has a hole just right in the middle of the formation. Right. This is again, we saw two champions in the tank line, kind of in the column in the last one. Baldur's Gate has 3 tanks, and then it does a weird shift around, almost like it's trying to be a diamond with additional stuff in the front, and then but it just leaves a hole in the middle. And again, that's going to mess with your buffs. Now, keep in mind, we'll hop over here. This is still a column. It is still an entire column. So even though, let's put Brunar in. Okay, let's put Brunar in. There we go. The game's like, nah, we're good. Even though there is a there we go. Even though there is a hole here, it is still considered the column. You can still buff straight across that column with an ability that says buffs in the same column. This is a pretty straightforward example of this. There are some much more wild layouts that have like something way over here and then nothing in between them until it comes up like way over here. and it will jump that entire gap. You can buff across that entire column. It is still a connected column, even with a gap. So columns, no matter what, are connected, even though there's gaps in them, holes. But they just, adjacency is what will not necessarily jump them. Okay. Trying to think if the other... Well, let's go look. I can show off these different specific layouts for these campaigns. Icewind Dale. Again, you have a lot of top here, right? All of these here are going to be top. So there's like 5 top. There's only 2 back. There's only 1 front. But then there are 5 bottom. Even though they're staggered like this, that is still considered all the bottom because they're all the clear bottoms of the columns. So the one thing to keep in mind is when we were... no, we want to go here. When we're looking here, this one little spot right here in the second column is not considered an edge because it isn't at the top, front, back, or bottom. Even though there's nothing behind it, generally speaking, I don't believe, unless it changed, I don't believe this gets counted as an edge. So keep that in mind when you're talking about edges. That usually the holes or gaps in a formation aren't necessarily going to count as an edge. Wild Beyond the Witchlight, again, a much tighter formation, so nothing you have to worry about so much about gaps or holes here. So a bit more straightforward. Then when you get into something like Trials of Mount Tiamat, it won't let me... There we go. You will see that you have a very staggered formation, but these columns, you can still buff across these columns right here, the second and the fourth column. And there is, of course, a gap and a hole in the formation that you have to build around and still, try to keep your tanks alive. These are, again, the more... I will say kind of the more easy formation layouts in the game. They're gonna function to give you kind of an understanding, basic understanding of formation building and adapt to things. It is the events that are going, and thus the time gates as well. They're going to cause you a lot more problems because there are so many champions, and each champion has its own formation layout. There might be a duplicate somewhere after 99 champions, but generally speaking, they're trying to build unique layouts as best they can for all of them. They will get pretty out there. They will stretch your imagination and your understanding. In fact, you know what? Hey, why not use some time gate pieces? I don't need to use them for anything else. Let's look at one that just melted some people's brains a little bit. Let's look at Gaarawarr. So, in a time gate, you don't see it until you hop in. So let's take a look. As you will note, this is a particularly unusual layout. There aren't a lot of adjacencies. There are lots of gaps. There are lots of columns too. This is a 6-column layout, even though there's only one here, and a lot of these only have one. 4 of them only have one. These are still columns. They just don't have anything else in them. So this is the type of situation you're going to find yourself in as you start running into these champion adventures. And you need to understand how columns work, what abilities are going to jump gaps. The reason this was Gaarawarr's, specifically, I can't get to Gaarawarr. The reason they used this layout specifically was one of Gaarawarr's abilities, jumps gaps, and it projects out in a snowflake pattern, which means it projects out in these long lines. So putting Gaarawarr here where Bruenor is would not only buff this entire column, but also buffs this entire diagonal set here, meaning you buff all but 2 champions in the formation. But also, if you put him here, he would buff this column, and then he buffs across this gap all the way out to here. So this is why they designed Gosricks like this. This doesn't mean that every layout, event layout in the game is designed specifically for that champion. But in this case, this very unusual layout was designed to really show off how you can use Gosrick to buff all over the place. For newer players, sometimes these types of formations are going to be incredibly challenging to build a functional formation in with your core champions, the starting 12. And that's just kind of a function of, things are more difficult in events sometimes in terms of building functional formations. It can happen, and there's no way around it. But as you collect more champions, you can make even this wild, unusual formation work for you. For instance, I pushed in this formation with my champions just about as far as I would have pushed in a different formation. I actually compared two different ones that were going on in this event. One that was much more new player friendly versus this one. And for a veteran player, didn't really matter which one I was in. I did pretty much just the same in terms of distance going in the event. So don't fret when you see something unusual like this. Just take some of these tools, understand what the columns are, understand what adjacencies are, read abilities on your champions, and you'll be able to still build out a formation. I'm gonna bounce out of this. We're gonna head back, and I am going to build kind of a starter formation in Sword Coast. Again, one of the things I want to say, usually the very first thing somebody says, we'll see when they're a brand new player is, "Hey, can somebody give me a formation for this?" I completely understand why people want to come in and just say, and just copy paste a formation somebody hands to them. When you're brand new, that's about the only time that would ever work, because when you're brand new in the game, you have a specific set of champions and you probably don't really have any gear for them. But because there are, now 99 champions in the game, and each champion can get 6 slots of gear of different rarities and different item levels and different guilds, and you can have blessings and you can have perks and you can have motor, you can have all of these things that are affecting how those champions are going to function. Copy pasting doesn't always work. Doesn't always work in this game. In fact, most of the time, you can take a formation that somebody else did really well with, and you can try to use it, and you're not going to do as even remotely as well. Because the thing is if your gear is very different than that other person's, and if in terms of rarity or item level or having any at all, those champions are going to perform vastly differently. So it is much better for you to learn how to build your own formation than just copy paste someone else's. What I will say is good about seeing someone lay out a formation is that you can look at the formation they have built, and you can start kind of reverse engineering it in your head. Why are they in these places? Why did they put them there? And what function do they serve, right? So we're going to hop into the Curse Farmer. I'm going to throw a formation in, and then I'm going to explain it. So you will see it first. We're going to, if I get some gold here, we're going to do core champions only, so that this is something that even brand new players can understand. Except for Makos, apparently, who's in jury duty. That makes this more problematic. Let's just do this. Oh no. Yeah. Alright. And we're going to call Hitch a core champion, because he kind of is. Folks, if you don't have Hitch, sign up for the newsletter. So just go right over here to the main menu, click on newsletter, you put in a valid email address. They're going to send you Hitch. Hitch is effectively kind of he's a core evergreen. Kitch is a Corver green. Sometimes he gets called an evergreen champion, but he's not part of the original 12. But we're going to use him here. So let me throw some people in some places here. Sure. We're going to call this a formation. Now, part of formation building is also going to be how you determine your specialization choices, which I didn't mean to hit Brunar's. Let me undo his so I can explain. There we go. Because this is going to be how you determine some things in the game, how you determine placement of the champions at times, how well they're going to function, who they're going to buff. Okay. So, this is a functional starting formation. There's going to be a lot of people who will argue the optimal nature of this formation, but when you're a brand new player, these are kind of the champions you're going to have. The only one that I would probably be missing here would be Makos, and I would probably swap him in for somebody else here. So, why are these champions in this specific layout? The reason it has to do with how their abilities function, and what role they serve. So we're going to get a little deeper. When you're looking at building your formation, you need to look at not only the layout and adjacencies, you need to look at the champion, and you need to see what role they function in. So Nayeli is a tanking and support champion. So tanking means this is your cue that this is a champion that probably should go in the front column. Not always, but in this situation, that's where we're putting her. We're putting her in the front column so that as enemies get closer to us on the screen, if they were to start attacking, they would be attacking Nayeli, which is kind of what you want, right? You don't necessarily want them attacking your DPS. You want them attacking your tank, hopefully in situations. Nayeli also has an ability that increases damage of champions in the column behind her. This is the information we need to know that if we're going to use Nayeli, we need to put our DPS champion in the column behind her. She doesn't buff anywhere else. She doesn't buff damage anywhere else. Just right behind her, right? These are our formation strategy building cues. Again, another ability. Increases the damage of all champions. So this is everywhere in the formation. For each enemy attacking Nayeli and each enemy in rage stack. So there's an argument here that says you don't have to put a champion right behind her. She's still going to get some kind of buff, right? But it's better if your DPS is getting both of them. That's kind of how math works. Her abilities, her specialization choices don't really affect the formation layout. However, for her specifically, one is going to up the damage bonus she's providing, and one's going to make her tankier. It doesn't completely explain this. It just says it's increasing her health by 70. But it also, in the future, unlocks more health upgrades for her and her ability to share her health with others. So this is, when she's tanking, this is where we want to go. Now, I said we need to put our DPS right behind her. Well, who's our DPS? Well, it's either going to be Brunor or Jarlaxle, because those are the two I put right behind, right? Well, Brunor says support, so it's not going to be him in most cases. Jarlaxle says DPS gold, right? So that's fantastic. And then I look at Jarlaxle's abilities. Hey, it increases his own damage. Hey, we get some gold. Hey, increases his own damage. Hey, it's almost like Jarlaxle's a DPS that only cares about himself. So we just need to make sure that he's placed behind the tank, which we did. And we look at specializations, and again, it has nothing to do with placement, so we're just going to pick one. But we have Brunor in this column. Well, we already talked about Brunor a little bit, even though that song says we don't talk about Brunor. Isn't that what the song says? So we know that he needs to buff in the same column. He wants to be in the same column. Hey, look, we put him in the same column. He has two specializations that, again, one increases the buff, but then one is actually a formation layout type ability that we need to understand to know if we're going to choose it or not. So Shieldmaster says it increases the effective rally by 10% for 10 seconds whenever a champion within 2 slots of Bruenor is attacked. So again, that's that within 2 slots thing. There aren't arrows for that, but that means that anything all the way back to Hitch and Ashara, all the way through here. So everyone except for Tyrell would trigger this, but ultimately what you're looking for are the tanks within 2 slots of Bruenor, or just one tank in this case. So Bruenor could be put all the way back here and still trigger that ability if we want to choose it. But if for some reason our layout doesn't allow us to put Bruenor within 2 slots of the people that are taking the damage, then this ability doesn't work, right? We need to know that when we're building our formation. We need to know that if we click this button, but he's not within 2 slots of a tank, that we just wasted our specialization. We should have gone over here, right? So this is part of the understanding. Again, there's 99 champions. I don't expect you to remember how all of them work. I've written a guide for every one of them, and I don't even remember how they all work off the top of my head, folks. That's why I wrote the guides. Those are my notes. Those are my own notes. So as we go through these champions, you'll see like Celeste buffs adjacent, just directly adjacent, but she also heals in the column in front. Well, Gaarawarr, if she heals in the column in front, why is she so far back from the tank, right? You can see the healing's only going to Bruenor and Jarlaxle. They're not the ones taking the damage. And it comes down to her specialization choice. She has a specialization that allows her to heal 2 columns ahead, right? So it's almost like I built this formation knowing what her specializations do and where I was going to end up with her once I got her to that choice, right? So don't just build your formation. You kind of have to have a little bit of knowledge about the champions and how they work, because you want to build the formation based off where the champions are going to end up, including specializations with all their abilities, not just where they are when you first start leveling them up. Because sometimes, especially in the case here of Celeste, that ability can change and make it and allow you to put them in a potentially different position. So all of these aren't necessarily going to change. Sometimes specializations have nothing to do with it, like Ashara is going to just buff everyone that qualifies, so we don't really have to make a choice. Minsk's is about the enemies, not about the champions. Hitch is about himself. Tyrell's changes how Tyrell functions. Tyrell goes from a support buffer to a tank. Well, Tyrell's all the way in the back, so that doesn't mean that he couldn't function in tank form for reasons, but we're gonna just choose Moonbeam, and he's gonna stay like this, and now we have a formation that can push through Sword Coast for a new player. Is it the best possible formation ever? No. Because other champions, if you had them, could do far better things. If I had Makos in, I would have Makos probably in for Minsk. And at some point, even the favor that you have might change your choices. If you're brand new, Jarlaxle tends to be the starter DPS. He's a low favor DPS. He comes in, he does some damage. He also earns you some gold, which helps you do more damage because you can upgrade more. But later on, when you have more favor, you would want to swap. You would want Ashara being the one who does the DPS, because you'll be able to get more champions out. You'll be able to enable some of her power features, etc., etc. So sometimes how you're going to place people in a formation is just based on how much you've leveled them up. That's a whole other discussion, in my opinion, but that's something you want to keep in mind. That's more, as you progress through the game, how are champions going to change and become different and stronger? Who's going to become weaker? That kind of stuff. And then how do champions fit together with each other? That's even more a part of the formation layout puzzle. We've talked about some basic parts of that today. But like Ashara specifically, she has these bonds with other champions. And she wants to bond with at least 3 of those champions. And if she does that, then she gets the buff herself, which is how she becomes a powerful DPS. These are things that you will learn by reading about each of the champions. Yes, that is something you're going to want to do. Don't just whenever somebody gives you a copy and paste formation, or you see a formation recommended in the Discord, there's a whole channel for that, #formations. Whenever you see something like that, try to dissect it. Try to figure out what each of those champions is doing, by maybe taking that time to read up on them and what they do from a guide or a fan site. Figure out what they're doing and why those people place them there. And you will learn more about formation building and formation strategy. There are some champions that utterly and completely flip formation building and how you're gonna build. Specifically, currently, those champions are Archon, as he's one of the core champions. Archon, and then Artemis and Trary. They do weird things with formations and abilities, and specifically abilities like the ones we were talking about, where they buff adjacent. So what we call a positional formation ability. They're going to they're going to want you to do strange things to maximize the way they receive those. I consider that advanced formation strategy. And there's a video guide for that. It is a little bit older, but nothing's really changed about Archon and Artemis, except there's more champions now that you can use with them. So keep that in mind when going forward. I think that's everything. Oh, nope, I almost forgot. So this is how you, so I kind of demonstrated building a formation. I explained how this formation got built. But what do you do afterwards? Like, you don't want to have to rebuild that formation every single time you load in, right? Well, that's what this column of stuff over here is for. If you click this little icon at the top, you will come to the Formation Save Manager. You will be able to save your current formation. There's this nice visual layout that shows you a picture of what it looks like. You'll be able to name it. You can actually make it one of the favorites, which are these starred ones. You can have up to 3 favorites. Those are hotkeyed on Q, W, and E. So you can load those formations at any time. That's the numbers 1, 2, 3 down here. You can save up to 50 formations per campaign. That's far more than you're ever going to need, in my opinion. So you should be good. You should be good. I like to name mine very specific things, so that when I come back in and I'm looking for it, I can find it. So this would be starter, right? And I could put it as my second saved one. And now when I go to the folder here, it's going to show me that I have saved this as starter. I can always edit the name if I want. It's even going to save how many, like where my familiars were placed. So in this instance, I didn't save any familiars in this. But if I had, it would show up over here, like 17 out of 62. Later on, when you unlock your Modron cores, which is a whole other thing, it will also save your specialization choices, which is nice. But in the beginning, it's not going to, so you'll have to choose those as they load in, and as you load them in and level them up. The neat thing about this is, if you look at this formation, when you hit that button, like here, we're going to start over. When I go to, let's say, I'm just going to go to a different place. I'm going to go to Unearthed Evil. When I start and I load this formation in, I'm going to hit 2 down here. You'll note it moved Brunar there. It didn't load anybody in, right? Well, that's because it doesn't buy champions for you. It doesn't. It saved the layout of the champions. So what you need, if you want to have it actually load the champions, that's what you need your familiars for. You would have to actually put familiars. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Down here, yep, there they all come. I'm like, they're all gonna hit at once, aren't they? Just picking on with specializations. You would have to put familiars on each of those champions, because familiars are the automation that happens here to buy champions or to or to do other things on the screen, right? That's a whole other guide. But now if I go in and I'm like, well, I want to overwrite this because now I want to click this button and I want it to buy all my champions for me, I can just say overwrite. It's now going to show here that I have 9 familiars saved. And now when we do this whole reset thing again, we will see that when I push that button, let's go further in, the mists of Ravenloft. When I'm much further into the campaign and I hit the load, it's going to, as I kill and collect gold, it's going to go ahead and start loading that stuff in. And of course it didn't do it right away. I got to hit it again because now I have the gold to afford them. Boom, it loads them all in. Right. Much easier, though, than trying to figure out where everything is going to go, right? Like, what did I do last time? Oh, yeah. Now, you will probably want to update these as you get more champions, as you learn more about formation building. You just overwrite them. You can delete the old ones, come up with new ones, and go from there, right? It tends to be good to check your formation folder as you get new champions and build out new combinations. Save them with new names if you want, trying different DPS champions, maybe trying different tanks. Save them, see how they perform once you get to your wall. You can always back up so you're not being attacked, load in a new formation, go back to your wall, see which one pushes further. All right. Okay, we're going to head out to our break early, which means we'll start the Q&A early. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them into chat. I see that we've already got about a dozen that Jordan's already grabbed. Yeah, when we come back, we'll hit the stuff that's on topic on formation stuff, and then we'll go into anything you want to ask after that. All right. Be back shortly.
At the dawn of time, we fought for the gods. They were ended and we shattered our bonds. Now we own the sea is lying in wait. Intrude on our domain and you'll be our prey. From our darkest depths we serve. Dawn of nature we emerge. Release the kraken. It's time for slacking. I am your nightmare and I'm coming for you. Release the kraken when I'm attacking. I am destruction and oblivion too. Chaotic evil lord, scourge of the deep. We are the darkness and we'll never sleep. No dragon turtles and no other pot can save the hunger of this undersea gods. Our domains will claim your share. In all the power calling.
Oh, hey, the music ended. That's me. That's my turn to come back. I have changed our location because I wanted to verify. This is whenever we're talking about edges, we of course have to talk about the edgelord himself, Paulton. He's so edgy. Foolish Genius 89 is a slot boarding a gap considered an edge. Looking at you, Paulton. So this is one of the, probably maybe the only reason why you have to know what an edge is. Paulton has an ability called Edgy down here, hidden at level 700, that doubles the effect of his Magical Secrets ability if he's on the edge of a formation. The way you figure out if this is working or not, I don't know that we can quite get... yeah, I can't compare it directly. Normally, you would see, because everything's an edge except for this. You basically have to go in here and look at Magical Secrets. If there is an edge and a non-edge with the same number of current stacks, and the bonus, you can just manipulate them to see if it's going to work. Unfortunately, because of this, like, you would kind of want this to work, right? Like, you would hope this would work because that would surround him by 4 people, and then he doubles it, so he gets a lot more bonuses. The thing is, I don't know that it does. Makos also has one for when he's not on the edge too. Yeah, but Makos is on jury duty, so I can't pull him in and check. The problem is he buffs champions that are not adjacent to him, and this situation isn't the greatest because normally your DPS is probably in this column, but if you were going to put the DPS in this column, then it would work, right? But only if that functions, and I don't know that it does. It's still the best place. Here's the thing: it's still the best place in Waterdeep to put Paulton if you're going to use Paulton, because it's still surrounding him by 4, which gives him multipliers on his buffs. So yeah, these are the kinds of things you have to figure out, and really the way you determine if it's working or not is by going into outgoing effects in the champ UI and going to see how many stacks it's actually getting, right? So that's the kind of thing you have to keep in mind, and that's where you'll find that information. So if you're trying to figure that out for yourself, the champ UI is your friend. I will say sometimes it shows up there, but maybe the numbers don't look right. In that case, that's what the support ticket system is for. Okay. Zil39, if the slots are filled with imps or carts, will that stop two-way adjacency? It should. I don't have a way to go test that out and demonstrate. Oh, yes, actually, I don't know that hold on. Which one did it give me? Which one did it give me? Nope. It gave me Armored Assault. If it had given me one of the other 2 variants for Gaarawarr, we could have gone and tested that out. Generally speaking, it potentially could. Again, the champ UI is your friend. You're going to want to place something in, see if it's passing through them. But usually having an NPC or an escort object of some kind is going to generally feel like it's going to stop that pass through, because it's not able to go to a champion and then another champion, but because there's not a champion in that slot, you'll have to test it. You'll have to test it. What else do we have for formation stuff? And then I'll come back to all the others. First Genius, can you demonstrate farthest away, factory in gaps? Ooh. Yes. That I can do. Oh, who's my farthest away champion? Omen has a furthest away, right? Omen's assassin furthest away. Yeah, so Shadow Council now applies to champions farthest from Omen and is increased by 125% for each champion of Timor in the formation. Cathris also would have worked. So these are champions that want to, that have the ability to choose something that is and buff something bigger if they are the farthest away. So in this case, we go from 85% to 100% up to 125%. So assassin would be what we would select. Now in this case, furthest away, we have to do the math. Like, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let me fill this entire formation first. Is everything there yet? Everything. There we go. Okay. So obviously, he's kind of pointing this out to you, right? But you would have to count like 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, now this would seem like Tiro would be 5, right? If you continue counting in that direction, but we can count from this direction too, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there's going to be a tie here, and the arrows actually point it out. It points that we are tied between Brunor and Tyrol here. That's how you do it. It's not going to count again. It's not going to jump gaps. You're not counting across a gap. You're counting direct adjacencies to each other. If we do this with Cathris, we should run into the same type of situation. Cathris. Where's it at? Did I choose the wrong specialization for it? I probably did. Anyway, he's going to do that same kind of counting thing in certain situations, unless they changed him. Anyway, Omen's a good example, though, and Omen actually has the arrows to point that out. But yeah, you just got to hand count them to figure it out. And just remember if there's another direction to go. Like if I put it here, I can direct it to a different position, right? So placement is going to... oh, that's what it was. It was farthest by default. I literally spec'd into the non-adjacent one because I'm so used to doing that. All right. There it is. We wanted efficient bookkeeping. Wrong spec. There we go. And again, he's going to count out, and as you move, you're going to see it move. So you can somewhat direct where it's going to end up. You can make it hit in multiple spots. The same with this. Like if I want to put my, if I put Omen here, but I want to put my DPS where Paulton is, then I need to move Omen to here, right? I can't do here. If I wanted to put them here, then I have to put my DPS across. So you can manipulate these situations depending on where you're putting your DPS. You would never put him up here, but this is how it would work. But if for whatever reason those indicators weren't showing up, then you just hand count. You just hand count by looking at, like, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and then these both are 4. This isn't 5 because we can count the same way around the other side, right? So keep that in mind. Where was Makos? I'm fairly new. Was it a bug or a restriction? It's on trial. I call it on trial or a jury duty. He has submitted to Trials of Mount Tiamat this week. That's an end game content. You submit one champion that's going to give your whole team a bonus when you're doing adventures there, and then you can't use that champion until you're done. So we're almost done. I'll get Makos back here shortly, but yeah. You kind of send a champion away, like I said, either on trial or I'm now I think I'm switching it to jury duty because because it's the trials. Yeah. Okay. No, everything else is not necessarily in regards to formation layout, but we have some champion questions that are going to lean into the champion, into how you're placing things. We'll talk about those in order, though. I'm going to go back to the beginning. Joe DA just got freely from a time gate, from yesterday's free time gate. How do they work? What specialization should I choose? How do I optimize gold gain? That's a lot of questions. I've got a guide for that. But if we throw freely in, we talk about freely real quick. Freely is one of the heroes of the plains. They are a support gold find champion. They don't really care about adjacencies or anything like that. They just need to be in. That's kind of the first thing that we'll talk about freely. They have their main ability is called Luck of Yondala, or as I always screw it up, Yuck of Londala. It's Luck of Yondala, though. always get those backwards. And what it does, it doesn't tell you what it does here. It's just come on, Sandy. But it does if you go over here. So go to the Formation Buffs tab, and you'll understand, and you'll learn what Luck of Yondala does. This is Freely's core ability. It's an on-hit debuff that has 4 different options. There's a gold find option. There's a damage debuff option, like so that the enemies take more damage. There's one that allows champions to attack quicker if they hit that enemy. There's one that stuns them. This is what you would read, but really, ultimately, because there's no stacks and you can't see anything visually, ultimately you just throw Freely in and you trust that he's doing what he's doing. And folks, he is. Now, what changes though is when you first start out, Freely is the only one that puts those stacks on. But the specialization choice is what allows other champions in the formation to apply those stacks as well, and that's where Freely's power comes from. They are based off lawful, neutral, chaotic alignments. So not good, neutral, evil. This is lawful, neutral, chaotic, so that's the axis we're working on. And basically it grants it to everybody that falls into that type of alignment. I feel like the straightforward way, the easy, if you don't want to do the most work and get the most accurate way to do this is to count the number of champions here. This is one of those where this probably could use one of those indicators that says how many champions are in the formation qualify. You'll just have to go do it by hand for now. So you're gonna, if just the kind of straight default way is to count the most champions that fit with whatever the alignment is. So in this case, if we look all through here, there's chaotic, there's lawful, there's chaotic. That's there. So now we're 3-2. Now we're 3-3. If you don't bother counting Freely, because he's always going to count. There's chaotic again. So we're just going to say chaotic. So now everybody that's chaotic, whatever, is now spreading Luck of Yondala with their attacks. Now, the other way to do it is to actually count the number of attacks each champion that qualifies is doing. For instance, Ashara is lawful. We went chaotic, but Ashara gets multiple magic missiles, and each of those will apply a stack. So technically we might have wanted to go with Ashara, right? These are the things you kind of have to, if you want to get deeper into it, that you're going to have to figure out, and the game can't necessarily front that information. So you just have to know how the champions work and try to spread them. Also keep in mind if there's a champion with an AoE attack. Well, guess what? That AoE is going to put stacks on everything it hits. So maybe you prioritize that one, right? It's not going to help at this point in the run where we're killing things over here, but at your wall, when that AoE is hitting everyone that's stacked up in front of your takes, then everyone's getting a stack of his debuff when that AoE hits. That's another thing you need to keep in mind, right? So, yeah. So the number is kind of the basic way that you can start learning to figure out, but ultimately you need to look at like who's doing what kind of attack and how are you going to be spreading that debuff, right? That's the big thing for Freely's kit is his debuff spreading, and it's all based off the specialization you choose. I think the other part of the question was how do you maximize gold gain? You don't. Again, you just kind of have to pick the right specialization because that's what's going to spread it, is all those attackers are spreading those debuffs around, and then you just have to hope that you get the gold find debuff. Now he also has Adventurous Tale, which for each area completed with Freely in the formation, you gain a bonus to the divine favor you earn when you complete your adventure. This means Freely wants to be in as close to level 1 as possible and be leveled up to Adventurous Tale, which is his first ability, so you should have it right away, as fast as possible, so that he is in and counting every level you complete. Right? I didn't put him in until late, so we only have 16 out of 50 levels. This also doesn't necessarily work with Briv, because guess what? When Briv jumps a level, you didn't complete it. You literally skipped it. You literally skipped it, folks. So Fraley is going to get fewer of these areas completed when you have him in a formation with Briv, who's skipping levels. Feels by design. It feels like logical, but people get upset when that happens. Just know that's going to happen. For more information on Freely, definitely hit up my guide. Hypnagogia, not on topic. I mean, we're to the off topic portion, so it's fine. I just unlocked the legendary forge. Nice. Could you talk a little about it if there's time? Sure. I've read your guide. So my question is, how should we decide who to upgrade? People who we use regularly and best support our DPS. Yeah. So here's the forge. The forge is part and parcel of Trials of Mount Tiamat. You unlock Trials of Mount Tiamat by completing the main storyline in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. This is end-game stuff. Trials is end-game stuff. It's kind of, well, mid-game is where you start doing Trials stuff, but it's the end-game content as you progress through it. And this is how you earn legendary gear. Legendary gear are these, you'll see these orangish, goldish borders on the outside of this. And then as this text scrolls at the bottom, you'll see legendary, and then there's an effect there with a level. So getting legendary gear and leveling it up is part of Trials, but it's specifically what you do in the Forge. So this is the very generic Forge UI that is always problematic. If you click on something, though, you'll see that you get taken to the item. You'll see the potential bonuses that can be added to this gear. Each champion, regardless of what item you click on for that champion, they're going to have the same 6 bonuses, just to make it easy for you. Once you choose one of these, and if you have the things that you need, the scales and whatnot, you can forge a legendary item. I'm not doing it. I can do one right now. Oh, boy. Making me choose my next legendary on screen, folks. That's fine. That's fine. That's not stressful at all. Basically, you're only going to be forging roughly one legend. Currently, in the current system, we're going to say current system because there are changes coming in the future, but nobody knows. You're only going to be forging one a week. And it's based off of the cost. So I'm not putting this on nerds, but the current cost is what you're going to be looking at, because once you forge one, the cost is going to go up to forge another one. And then every day you don't forge one, the cost goes down. So you tend to only forge one a week. That's the most efficient use of your scales. Scales are the currency that you're using. The cost starts at 1,000, and then it's going to go up. It's going to, go way up. You'll see here in a moment. And then when it drops back down, once it's below 1111, which this is, it's time to forge again. That's the efficient math number that the math people have determined is the math that we want to math for the math. I think everybody's got it. I think everybody's got it that it's based on the math. I did not do the math. The math people did the math. Who do I want to put this on? Does he have? Oh, he has 2 already. I think everybody's got. I think all the people in my main group have 2 now. I think I put 1 on Nova because I was like, let's start making Nova a thing potentially. You know what I'm gonna do? Did I put 1 on Zorbu? Where's Zorbu? This is why this needs better filters, folks. That's one of the things that I'm hoping comes, so I can just find the champion and I want faster. He's going to be all the way up here, isn't he? Yeah, there he is. I did put 1 on Zorbu. I put 2 on Zorbu. Wow, go me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put 1 on Krond. Let's make the Krond people happy. Boom. I forge it. It becomes legendary. Increase the damage of all male champions. Hey, that's great because Krond is male and he's the DPS. Did that just... Hold on. Now, if I look at a new one, you'll see the current cost went to 2,000, right? So now I don't want to forge one, right? I just want to wait. But what I can do is I can upgrade this. The cost is a fairly low amount. But you'll notice there's now a deity involved. This chose Gaarawarr. You chose Gaarawarr. This means when I go to upgrade, it's actually going to cost me an order of magnitude of favor from that campaign. So I'm at E57 there. It would drop me to E56 to upgrade this. But that gets me another level here, which doubles the power of the item, right? So going up levels costs scales and favor. And there's a minimum favor requirement as you're going up the levels too. So yeah, there's a whole, it's a whole thing. To really go the levels, there's no actual level cap. There's no level cap. But there's like technical cap, but there's a functional cap because it's based off how much favor you can earn. At some point it's going to require, you know, E60 favor just to even do the upgrade, and it'll only charge me E01, but it's going to say I have to have at least E60 at some point. Yeah. So keep in mind, there's also a reforge option. I don't even bother with that right now. Just forge new items. And now, as where to go, as you'll see, I spread mine out quite a bit. I don't have anybody with 6 because I want that power available in as many places as possible. So I did choose my support team, like my main go-to supports. When I'm playing, they each got one first. And then my DPS, my main DPS got one, and my backup DPS got one, and now my backup DPS got one. Just now, you saw it. And that way, if I get restricted out of using certain champions, I still have access to all that legendary power I accrued, right? So to me, spreading it out across your, whoever your pushing formation is, your main one and your secondary one, specifically for trials, because that's really where you're going to need it, is a good idea, because that way when you get bad restrictions, you're still keeping some of that pushing power that you had, and you're not just absolutely boned. Nathalis, I reached up to 300,000 gems. Nice. In your opinion, should I just go for the 500k and get third core? No. Or just buy more chests and some feats. More chests and feats. More chests and feats. I mean, unless you already have... I don't think you do. I was going to say, unless you already have, like, a really stacked Briv and Human that are earning you tons of gems, which I think if you're at 300,000, you probably don't have yet. Like the 4-skip Briv and the, like, 2-kill or 3-kill Human. I think the chests and feats are probably better for you in terms of progress. The strong core really only works for, like, Krond and a couple other melee DPS. I mean, it's nice to have another party automated, but if that's all you're getting it for, that's not really going to get you progress. So you're going to get more power and progress from buying the chests and feats. Okay, water. Raphael, how do you know which units are going to be your best support? There's layers to this, like an onion. Sometimes it's going to depend on the formation layout. Like we saw with that, with Gosrick's layout, where it was so wild and stretched out. Supports that want to be adjacent to your DPS, not a lot of ability to use them there, right? So other supports may have to step up and do the job for you. A lot of times it's going to come down to trial and error. You push as far as you can go, and then you start swapping champions in and try to see if there's some new combination that works specifically for where you are. I mean, not using only units that increase your bud, but also which debuffs you should use. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a situation that you want to determine at your wall. Like, you push as far as you can to the point where you're dying, you're not moving forward anymore. You start playing around with the champions you're using, whether they're debuffers or buffers, and you see if you can just push further. That's the best indicator. Bud is the greatest indicator, is a great indicator, but it's a combination of Bud and your area that you're on and able to push to that's really going to determine what your best formation is. Base DPS and average DPS are lies. Don't use them. Just go with Bud. Go with Bud, which is based off people actually hitting things instead of just simulations and estimations and averages. This is, that hit number that it says there. Hit 2.32E111. I mean, that's an actual number that happened. And this usually refreshes pretty regularly, but this is not a good formation, folks. So this isn't going to refresh regularly. But between Bud and how far you're able to push, that's things that you will learn as you get new champions, as you try things out, as you get better gear. Your gear is going to be a determining factor because that's the multipliers on your abilities. So yeah, there's kind of a lot that goes into it, but really getting to a wall and testing different formations out is what's going to help you determine that. And then you just kind of store that knowledge for the future. Gruftis, big thank you for your guides. You're welcome. Helped me get a Zaka and Dragon Bait and my second party. Nice. 2,200 hours and finally making some progress. Wow. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Everybody plays at their own speed. And honestly, sometimes you find something that clicks and then suddenly you fly through stuff. My best to work on the few campaigns I have some favor in, or work on others for tier 1. For like blessings and stuff. I would say the new player guide is probably the best bet. So I try to lay everything out in a milestone. If you've already kind of, if it sounds like you then went back and did, kind of the second, third milestone or whatever through there, that's Tomb of Annihilation. But just make sure you're kind of checking those boxes off is a good way to do it. And that does mean moving through campaigns, finishing them one at a time to a certain degree, finishing at least the storyline and getting your evergreens from each one and then moving to the next one. That tends to progress you pretty quickly. As long as quickly is subjective, it's based off how often you get to play. But so far that seems to work. Just jumping around and grabbing blessings isn't necessarily... you obviously want to grab favor and blessings, but you want to grab the evergreens because champions are power. Silly Simon, Blueshy's spirit form and Baloth resurrection. How should these mechanics work? Blueshy's spirit form is not actually dead. Like Spurt, you won't be able to stop Blueshy from turning into her spirit form, but once she's in her spirit form, Baloth's Djinn will then prevent her from dying. Is kind of the way you have to think about it. For instance, where's my boy Spurt? Where's my boy Spurt? Spurt has a death mechanic, if you weren't aware. And Spurt becomes a spirit form, but it's based off the ultimate instead of just actually getting hit by things. And Baloth isn't going to stop this from happening. Because that's a big hammer and the Djinn can't stop the hammer. But yeah, I mean, because it's a mechanic of Spurt to turn into his spirit, it's just going to be a thing that happens. Blueshy's requires actual damage. But Baloth won't step in and stop her from becoming a spirit because that's actually functionally still alive. It's almost like she has... if you want to think about it, is she has almost like some enemies have like the armored health pool before getting to the regular health pool. Think of her alive form as an armored health pool that enemies work through and then get into the real health pool, which is her spirit form. Once she gets to 0 in her spirit form, Baloth's Djinn will kick in. As will any other on-death effects. Archmagellas, how many enemies can you have on the screen at one time? The spawn amount is capped at 100. If you find a boss with unlimited spawn, that means you could have 100 plus the boss potentially. I don't know that. I mean, you can't necessarily count them all, but there's ways you could figure that out. So maybe 101. There's questions about whether or not Tatiana could run off screen and pull more in, and I have not tested, so I can't answer that. But the general answer is 100, with potential exceptions. Dragon Slayer, I got Black Viper out of my time gate. Nice. Would you be able to do a quick explanation of how she works? Sure, she stabs things. She stabs things. I'm not trying to be funny. That's literally what she does. She stabs things. She doesn't... She is a DPS. She's a pure DPS, so she has no support abilities. She doesn't... She kind of has a placement requirement, not really for her, but for other people. But she stabs things. The big thing that she does is she collects jewels. I think it's broken right now. I run with her and she had like 0 gems collected. I don't know what's going on. But her thing is built around gems. And basically, once she's in the formation and you've unlocked Jewel Thief, she will cause bosses to occasionally spawn red gems. And then she collects those gems, and then they power her up. But yeah, so like here's her ability. Sneak attack. Hey, she does damage. Distracted foes. Hey, she does damage. Aura of Infamy is the only thing you need to keep in mind, and that's that positional formation abilities that she receives from warlocks, rangers, rogues, or bards are buffed. So again, it's less about her and more about the other people you're using with her. So if you have good buffers that are in these 4 here, she's gonna do better than she would, right? Because she's gonna get a buff off that, and that can adjust, right? Her specializations, either she stabs more, or she collects more gems. I actually, as long as when the gems work, I tend to go with the gems one, because that actually ramps up her power in the run as well, and I prefer that. That's me. You do you. So yeah. I don't think that's... Yeah, so now, like, as you can see, it was 100% buff. Now it's like a 7,000% buff between all the upgrades and her ability, like her item. I have a golden epic, so that buffs it even more. So yeah, if you're using her with these, then she scales better. She scales a lot better. But yeah, you just put her in, she stabs things. You put her in and she stabs things. What else we got? DPS Rabbit. Yorvin? What does focus on the core mean with 12 original champions? Who are those 12 champions? They're Brunor, they're Celeste, they're Niali, they're your core champions. Jarlaxle, they're the ones. Calliope, I don't know why I clicked on there. Shara, Minsk, Delina, Makos, Tyrol, Jamila, Archon. Those are your core champions. Those are the 12 that start out the game, where if you don't unlock any others through events or evergreens or whatever, you have those 12 champions. They're the first champion in every bench slot. So focus on the core is referring to those 12 champions. Those are referred to as the core 12. I know they get rolled into evergreens sometimes. I do not do that specifically because of that reference in the game where they're talking about the core, focus on the core and the original 12 champions. I like to differentiate that those are the core 12. Evergreens are the others that you can unlock freely at any time. Not freely the champion. Unlock freely as in unlock at will. 5225 Fletch, what does it mean to reset? Basically to complete an adventure and start again. People use the term reset. This button up here that says complete adventure. This basically, like right here, your champion's levels will reset for your next adventure, but all equipment, inventory items, and divine favor gets carried over. So this is your resetting and starting a new adventure. So like, as you'll note, like if I would hit complete, then I would have to level up all these champions again, because the levels on the champions aren't what you carry over permanently. Your favor and any loot you've earned is what you carry over from adventure to adventure. That's your carried power. Smugglebeer, should you wait to open golden champion chests until you have at least all blue on the event champions? Like the champions, we're going to get via Steam. Oh yeah, so there's a Steam exclusive giveaway coming up where you're going to grab a bunch of champions. It's going to give you a bunch of gold chests for them so that you have gear. It's not going to give you silver chests. However, if you have saved up electrum chests, once you get those champions, will drop gear for those champions, and will favor those champions to a certain degree in dropping that gear. And you could, if you had enough electrums, get them to all blues. Yes, if you have that many electrums, that would be the best way to do it. But we're talking like 5 or 6 champions. 5, I think. I gotta go look at the list again. It's probably 5. I think it's usually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. So that's 5 champions. That's a lot of electrum chests potentially that you need to open. So yeah, I mean, I would pop your electrums first if you have any saved up when those champions come in. That is usually my order of operations for gearing up an event champion: is open electrums first, then named silvers, then named golds. So what's going to happen is there aren't going to be any named silvers, so open electrums first, then open the golds. It'll help a little bit, potentially keep you from... What you're looking for is you're trying to... really, you just need, hopefully, all greens. Because what you're trying to do is prevent a gold chest from dropping a green as an upgrade, which feels bad. You'd rather get those from electrums or silvers, right? So focus more on trying to at least get all green, because you're guaranteed to get a blue, a minimum blue in all of those others, but as an upgrade. But it could give you greens, and you don't want to get greens. Greens as duplicates are fine, but greens as your upgrade hurts. Smuggle beer again. At what Modron core level do you start to care about flow? Ooh. And is there a way to power level a core? Yes. Let me talk about the leveling first. So Modron cores right here. There's 3 of them in the game currently. When you get one, the way to power level it is to make sure that it's in your active formation, not in your background formation. Why? Why, Gaarawarr? Because if we go over here and we look at the core, and you hover over the XP bar, it will tell you your Modron core gains 1 point of experience every time you clear an area with it active. That means in the party. Well, in your background party, which functions off offline progress, that's clearing one area at best every 40 seconds. That's fairly slow. You're not going to get a lot of levels on it. And you got to clear thousands and thousands and thousands to go up levels. That got to go all the way up to level 15. You have to clear lots of levels. So having it in your active party means you're clearing levels faster. The best way to power level it, if that's really all you care about and you kind of want to give up campaign progress, like you don't want to go run campaign stuff and just have it in and level alongside your other progress, gem farming. So when you're new, if you don't have a wild Briv and Humon stuff, you go to Mad Wizard and you gem farm with whatever speed champions you have. That's going to be the fastest way for you to churn levels effectively and thus level your core up. At what level do you start to care about flow? It's less about, I mean, you always care about flow, but at first when you start off, just hooking up the nodes matters. So usually like, because it's going to be based off your pipes that you get. I'm going to go back in here because we need to talk about the pipes. So the pipes are drop loot from, like you get them out of component chests. You get 1 chest every time you level up your core. You can also buy 1 chest per patron per week once you unlock your patrons. That's the best way to get them. We don't really get them outside that. It's very rare that they give Modron chests out. So, yeah. Otherwise, you got to buy them with cash. But all of these pipes over here that you see on the left in my pipe storage, these were all looted out of chests, and as you get more of them, that's when you start really caring about your flow, because they're what's going to allow you to do things like build buff boxes, like we see here and here. Like these 6 pipes are arranged in a way that maximizes their flow. So it had 10 flow when it entered, and when we get up here, I've got 26 flow going out, 39 this way. So you're multiplying the effects of the flow in these buff boxes, and that's what allows you to stay epic all the way around. That is a kind of a later thing. At first, it's just hook them up. And as you get better pipes, you're always looking to see if you can get better flow. But it really only matters if you're able to go up to like a node to go from, like, at first it's just flow under 2, so it doesn't matter. So until you can get your flow over 2, you know, you're not even worried about flow. You're just worried about hooking up the pipes. Once you can keep your flow over 2, then it's like, then you're trying to increase it with the pipe organization to 3 and to 4. Once it's at 4, you don't worry about it as much, except in terms of carrying the flow to further places. Now that could potentially change in the future. There's been talks about an overflow system, but for now, once you get to 4, you're good as long as you can get 4 to all the end nodes, right? I don't have this one fully piped out for specific reasons, but I do have I do have layouts set so all 3 of my cores can be fully epic flow. But I think I don't think I hit epic flow until I was like maybe level like 5 to 8. I think that was about the time that I had earned enough pipes, that I had enough good pipes that I could start epicing out my flow. And from that point on, it was just all about, hey, when I get the next upgrade, can I continue the epic to each one? And yeah, from then on out, I think I was full epic for the rest of all the way to 15. But in the 5 to 8 range, I think, is where I started getting epic flow. So you're always fiddling with it a little bit, and you're looking as you get new pipes. But there will be certain like breakthrough points where you'll have enough space unlocked for you to actually build solid buff boxes and direct flow places. There's a whole video guide. There's like multiple video guides I have on Modron cores, so... Over on the Cine Games YouTube channel. Jester, is there a list or guide for best default spec for each champion? No. Because that's not really... Are there some champions that have a best default spec? Yes, but that's... Out of 99 champions, I'd say that's the minority of them. The majority of them are situational. You have to understand what's going on, either with your formation, or with the enemies that you're fighting against, or some combination of both. For you to make your choice. Yeah, so that's not really a thing. You just kind of have to read them, look at the specs, understand their abilities, and make the choice based on what's going on. Bug me not. Is there a way to see which champions are qualified for a Shar's Bond without checking them one by one? No. You have to learn. That's one of the things you're just going to have to learn. There isn't a way for them to really front that either. Well, I guess they could put a list. Oh, jeez. Yeah, if instead of, I mean, now you get that there's a number targeted, but for Ashara specifically, probably the better information transparency here is to list off which champions currently qualify. That's probably better. But one of the things you will learn, or hopefully, as you play, is who is what race. That's what we're playing with Ashara. Who's a human? Who's a dwarf? Who's an elf? Who's one of these in potpourri? Aarakocra, Dragonlord, Fearbolg, Lizardfolk, Minotaur. A lot of them visually you can kind of tell, but you know, maybe if you're not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, you might know not understand what any of these are. So until or unless at some point they add the names down here, then you just have to learn who's what race. Chan TR, which champion would you suggest for a newcomer to unlock with time gate for the 6th spot? Oh, slot 6? Krull. Slot 6, Krull. If you're new, Krull. If you're not new, if you're just fairly new, Krull. If you've been around for a few months, Krull. If you're moving into the mid game, Krull. Krull. If you have no other option in slot 6 other than Ashara, Krull. Why Krull, Gaarawarr? Krull delivers the 2 things you want when you're starting out. I know Ashara is the main DPS. I get it. But Krull is huge when you're starting out because Krull delivers power, pushing power, and gold find which snowballs back into pushing power. So Krull is this early and mid-game snowball champion and delivering everything that you want, pushing power and gold to get you more favor. Now, at a certain point, you will not need more favor. And then the answer isn't Krull, and then the answer is Shandy. Shandy's a speed champion. You just want to push real far, real fast. You get Shandy, right? If you want to skip Krull and go to Shandy, sure, that's fine. But Krull's solid. Will you have to use a different DPS than Ashara? Yeah. Obviously, but Krull's a big deal. Krull's a big deal. Joshua, can you do a quick overview of how to set up the Baloth buff? Oh, the Jin stacking. Wow, do we have time for that? I don't know if I'm pushed far enough for that. Let's try. Okay. So Baloth is a slot 4 champion. Baloth Baratil. Manager of the Black Pits. I'm going to go the show must go on for this. It's basically the best spec for him if you're doing deep pushing. What I'm going to have to do here is take out... I really leveled him up too far. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. This is something that really needs to be demonstrated at a wall is the problem. Let me try to swap people in so they're real low level. What you need to do with Baloth is you need to... He has an ability called Generous Jin. It's all the way down here, level 170. Baloth's Jin Servant Najim will bring any champion that dies back to life at 1 HP and make them immune to all damage for 30 seconds. That's neat, but the big part is the second one. For as long as the resurrected champion lives, the party's damage is increased by an amount. And that amount stacks with itself, and so that you can put Baloth's Jin buff on everyone in your party, including Baloth. Let's see if we can actually kill anybody off here. I don't think we can. Yeah, I'm just too far in. Let me try to remove people. I don't think I can demonstrate. Yeah, this has to be something I demonstrate at a wall. I need to be able to kill off the champions. I'm not going to be able to kill off the champions. The point, though, is you get super deep. This isn't something you set up early on in a run, clearly. It's something you push super far, and then you stack. You can't do it at the start of a run. You just can't, because you can't kill off your champions reliably. As you can see here, I can't even with 2 champions in, I can't clear the screen. Even with 1, I'm not going to be able to do it because Baloth has an adjacency attack thing. Potentially. Let's see if I can kill off Baloth. Baloth only has 1,400 health. I don't think it's going to happen. But you would. What I do is I take out my Modron core. This will actually help. Taking out your Modron core reduces the health the champion has, so he's going to die real quick now. We'll see that. Yeah, this is how I have to do it. There we go. It just triggered. So you can see now there's a little icon. That's Najim's head. It's Najim's head right here. This he's got the red turban on. He's got the dark beard. That's his Jin servant. So now he is marked. He has been resurrected or saved. So now he has a generous Jin stack right here. You can see current revived champions 1, total DPS buff EO 5. That number, not super impressive, but if we try, let's see if we can have this. Each champion you put this on then adds to that total. You can get this into the what I refer to as the E-teens. So you can get a lot of damage bonus out of this just by trying to kill. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it. Just by trying to kill everybody off, right? It takes some manipulation. You would go to your wall, kill one person off, like see that trigger, drop back, adjust the person in the front, wait for the timer to reset because it's a 60-second timer, which goes faster if you're using speed potions, and then rinse and repeat. I do this a lot on. I've done this a lot on like GG2E and stuff, but usually it's because I'm at a wall and I can demonstrate it at a wall. Yeah. So there's you know what I did? There's a recent. There has to be a fairly recent video guide up on the Cena Games YouTube that includes Baloth because I remember doing this stacking fairly recently. So look for that. Look for that. Puritan 74 is a list anywhere that has all the details about each of the champion's attacks. Not a list, no. But I have a guide for every single champion over on the subreddit. I'm going to link it in chat now. There's the subreddit wiki page with all of my guides on it. You can review them one by one. What I recommend doing is just reviewing the champions that you have currently, so that you understand how they work. And then as you pick up new ones, review each of those one at a time, right? Because there's just no way that list. There's 99 champions and they've all got multiple abilities. That would be an enormous, even for me, an enormous guide. Jester, how come Helm's Favor has parentheses? I don't know. Where did it have parentheses? I don't see parentheses. Is it somewhere else? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that's in reference to. Chester. Mikey Moo, what champion would you recommend leveling to 100 in... getting their item level up to average level 100 in slot 7 between Catti-Brie, Frida, Freely, and Gosrick. Freely. Freely's the... he's got an item for his Luck of Yondala, so he's going to be the best scaling with item levels. Yeah, here we go. Like there's a Lucky Break one, or Requisition. Unlucky for them is the other one. So this is the Gold Find one. This is the damage debuff. Yeah, Freely. It's because of the bonus favor. Oh. Are you talking about like a conversion? Yeah, I'm not sure what that reference is to. People are saying it's because of the bonus, but I don't know. It was Have Faith Tier 1 Blessing for Helm's Favor. It adds a bonus one. Okay. I guess I wasn't looking at a conversion, so they're looking at a conversion page, and I'm not. Do I have a conversion? Oh, there's my conversion. Oh, this. Yeah, so there's as people have said in chat, there's a blessing. See, I just need context for the question. I need context for the question, so I know what you're talking about. This is a bonus that was coming in from one of the blessings that you can get there. So this would be the base conversion, but because it gets a bonus, they're showing you that there's extra. Yeah. They're showing you that there's extra. That's going to be right over here. Let's go back to Helm. Oh, it's not the... It's here. Right? No. Here. Have Faith. Increases Helm's favor earned from event time gate conversions by 5%. So you get a 25% bonus when you convert into Helm. That's really only useful when you're actively doing Helm and need more favor. After that, yeah, that's why I don't think about it anymore. I State of Trance. You recently mentioned Avon was the best buffer, best support buffer in the game. It's worth dropping the money on a large pack of chests for him. Ooh, I don't know, because I don't know what your disposable income is like. If you can afford that, maybe. Yeah, I don't like to give recommendations to other people's disposable income, but potentially. Sometimes sometimes he's got a pack over here. But yeah, I mean, the big thing for Averin is this one. The mirror image epic. So slot 3 epic is the big deal. So once you get that, that's kind of what you're shooting for. Shiny or golden is great, but ultimately just having the epic here is is really his big damage bonus. So it's the item that scales the best for him in terms of like it applies the number of times it applies. So having that epic and getting some good item levels on is great, but you can always get item levels from blacksmith contracts. But if you have the disposable income and you want to drop, 40, $50 in the game and buy a big pack of his chests, sure. I mean, that's because he scales well and he's really strong. That is a good choice. Cryo Sentinel, how can I get Havilar to auto summon imps on my gem farm? You can't. It's not a thing anymore. Yeah. That was always a bug. They tried to fix it multiple times. It got fixed on some platforms, and finally, it's now fixed on all platforms. So yeah, that was never how she was supposed to work. Because it's a function of her ultimate. You're supposed to hit the ultimate button to call them out once you level up the ultimate. They were never just supposed to come out on their own. Warlock DBA, I have more than a few champions that have green, blue, purple gear, but no gray. Yeah. Does this really affect them? I don't know where we're talking about. If so, which chest would be best for filling? Like, do you mean you have empty slots? Or are you talking about, like, your collection, Warlock? Like, are you talking about on this screen? Or are you talking about out here? Because the gray is the common gear, and that doesn't matter. I mean, it's always going to slot the highest rarity gear for you to use, and use that multiplier. The collection doesn't matter. It's just... I say that, and I get all upset when I don't get all the items, but that's just because obsessive collection disorder. Is what I call it. But yeah, that doesn't change how they function. It's always going to use the highest rated, so gray doesn't really matter. Electrums will fill gaps that are here. So just opening up electrums will eventually get you gear in all the slots. But in the collection, I mean, for your collection, electrums will also eventually get it there, but the collection doesn't really matter for power. Let's see if we can get through the last of these. We've got 4 left. Orpheus, is there any kind of guide place to learn how to maximize the usage of Briv for gem farming? Yeah. Zeke has a guide on the subreddit for automated Briv farming. That's going to be, it's not using scripting, just using your Modron core. There's also a thread off of the resources channel in the Discord that's about, that everybody talks about in there. So hit up those 2 things. If you want to learn how to do that, that's a whole lot of work, but it has a whole lot of reward if you can manage it. Smoke a beer. My next time game is probably going to be Briv or Human. Who wins the 1v1? For me, it's Human. And the reason for that is because Human's speed effect it just requires their placement in a specific spot in the formation. Whereas Briv's speed effect requires that you build stacks, and those stacks can run out. So if you're going to choose between Human or Briv, if you're only going to pick one right now, go Human first, because that effect will be on more. You'll get the speed more. Yeah. Twid OW, which is better for gold find and favor, Crawl or Freely? I'm struggling to max out Avernus and Icewind Dale. If you're a Zaka farming, and you should be if you're in Avernus and Icewind Dale, I want to say Crawl only if you get 20 stacks is more reliable. Freely is a bit random. And if you have, because you don't have Crawl yet, it's going to take a while. You really need both of his Virulent Strain feats, but one of them comes out of gold chests. So you're just going to have to try to farm that out of gold chests by opening lots and lots of gold chests. Because that's going to then get you into the 30 stack and 40 stack capability, which really just blows favor farming out of the water. So Crawl technically is the better one, but if you don't want to put a lot of, if you just want, you can just grab Freely, and he's going to help out, but you really need both if you're really trying to get lots and lots of favor. Raphael, this one's more general. When should we close our time gate? Wait the whole 3 days and farm Maestro favor? No. Close it out early and do other things. You just want to grab your 3 gold chests. And if you want to grab some silvers by doing a deep run in a free play, go for it. But the favor isn't as big of a deal there because you're only getting a 25% modifier for each EO1, or like 2.5 or whatever for each EO1. So like normally in an event, for E10 of favor, you would get 100% bonus because it's a 10% multiplier for every order of magnitude. But in a time gate for that same E10 favor, you're only getting a 25% multiplier. So it's just not as big a deal for favor. If you really need it, go for it, but it's not as big of a deal. Can I suppose Artemis a good carry DPS? Yes, but he needs a lot of very specific champions to work with him, so he's not necessarily a new player DPS. He is one of those exceptions to the formation strategy. You have to build formations very differently to use him, and you need a very lot of specific champions to use him. And then you're probably going to need some gear and item levels. He's more of an mid to end game DPS than a new player DPS. Last question, Proctor Run. Should I go for the second core or try and collect champions? I hear is a must-have, like Krull and all that. Try to unlock your second. So split the party 2. Aim for split the party 2. Try to do some combination of split the party to, getting 3 champions in every slot while also getting solid champions. That's the best bet, because split the party 2 is going to get you your fast core, and the fast core is real fast. All right, folks, that's it. That's it for me. We are out. We're going. There's no more streams for the weekend on this channel. But in a few hours from now, you can come over to my channel, twitch.tv/Gaarawarr, spelled like it sounds. We'll be playing some video games over there. I usually play for about 3 or 4 hours on Saturdays. So come, not Idle Champions. I do play Idle Champions on Mondays on my channel. But yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Any other questions, hit up the Discord or the subreddit. Have a great weekend, folks.
I was summoning an army of dead while you were feeling mortal hearts with your dread. Then I looked into your eyes and I knew we had to be together. Is our hatred just mistaken love? Our fighting merely passion and lust? Then you gazed into my soul and we knew that we could roll forever. Secret lovers undercover on the lands of hell. You know I miss your sweet kiss when I'm in the abyss. Why don't you come out of the shadow and veil? My sweet red queen, you're the one I wanna be with tonight. We make a show of fighting face to face, but at night I only want your embrace. You made my dead heart beat and you trapped me with a feather. Let me put my wand to the side, and behind that mask where you hide, we will gaze across our time and know what's yours and mine, treasure. Secret lovers undercover on the land of hell. You know I miss your sweet kiss when I'm in the abyss. Why don't you come out of the shadow and veil? My sweet red queen, you're the one I wanna be with tonight. None of them can see what you're worth, don't understand you the way I do. I've seen the pain beneath, and it's one that I will leave for you. Sweet secret lovers undercover all the lands of hell. You know I miss your sweet kiss when I'm in the abyss. Why don't you come out of the shadow veil? My sweet red queen, you know I really mean it. My sweet red queen, I know that you believe it. My sweet